In 1985, at just 29 years old, Steve Jobs sat down for a rare interview with Playboy magazine, an interview I've probably read 10 times. At that moment, Apple had just joined the Fortune 500 faster than any other company in history, growing from $200,000 in sales from Jobs' garage to a $1.4 billion powerhouse. With an estimated net worth of $450 million, mostly in Apple stock, Jobs was by far the youngest person on Forbes' list of the richest Americans for several years running. Yet to hear Jobs tell it, the money wasn't even half the story. He was on a mission, preaching what he called the gospel of salvation through the personal computer. He eloquently described a time when computers would be as common as kitchen appliances and as revolutionary in their impact as the telephone or the internal combustion engine. People made fun of him for these predictions. He was dead right on both counts. The interviewer noted that at a New York City party filled with famous figures like Andy Warhol and Keith Haring, Jobs was most interested in showing a young boy how to use the Macintosh. When asked why he seemed happier with the boy than with the famous artists, Jobs answered, "Older people sit down and ask, 'What is it?' But the boy asks, 'What can I do with it?'" This distinction reveals everything about Jobs' philosophy. Jeff Bezos would later articulate this as the difference between missionaries and mercenaries. Mercenaries try to flip their stock, while missionaries love their product and customers, building something great. The paradox is that missionaries usually make more money. Jobs was always selling. The best founders like Ken Griffin and James Dyson understand that you have to sell customers, employees, investors, and your vision. When asked about his wealth, Jobs laughed off the attention, noting he'd lost $250 million in a single year when Apple's stock dropped. "My main reaction to the money thing is that it's humorous," he said. "It's hardly the most insightful or valuable thing that has happened to me." What truly fascinated Jobs was the excellence of invention. He spoke of the petrochemical revolution that gave us free mechanical energy, and how the information revolution would provide free intellectual energy. "It is very crude today," he admitted, "yet our Macintosh computer takes less power than a 100-watt light bulb to run, and it can save you hours a day." This revolution, he believed, would dwarf everything that came before. Jobs understood that people are tool builders, and the computer is the best tool we've ever built. A writing tool, communication center, supercalculator, planner, filer, and artistic instrument all in one. He placed his work in historical context, comparing the personal computer to the telegraph in its current state, while envisioning its evolution into something as natural and intuitive as the telephone. The Manual for WordStar, the most popular word processing program at the time, was 400 pages thick. Jobs observed that to write a novel, you had to read a novel, a problem he was determined to solve. His obsession with simplicity was absolute. Fewer versions to choose from, fewer prices to consider. Turn it on and it just works. When the interviewer warned that they'd been told they were about to be snowed by the best, Jobs smiled and replied, "We're just enthusiastic about what we do." He believed in supporting products with massive ad campaigns, great marketing, and education. "Good PR educates people," he insisted. "You cannot con people in this business. The products speak for themselves." Perhaps most revealing was his answer to the question of whether it takes insane people to make extremely great things. Jobs spoke of building the Mac for themselves, not for market research, not for anyone else. "When you're a carpenter making a beautiful chest of drawers," he said, "you're not going to use a piece of plywood on the back. Even though it faces the wall and no one will ever see it, you'll know it's there. So you're going to use a beautiful piece of wood on the back for you to sleep well at night. The aesthetic, the quality, it must be carried all the way through." He offered profound advice on how to think about building great products. Your thoughts construct patterns like scaffolding in your mind, and most people get stuck in those patterns like grooves in a record. It's rare to etch grooves in a way other than a specific way of looking at things. Jobs would always ask, why does it work that way? Is there a way we could do it better? Is there a new technology we can introduce? Jobs warned that companies, like people, age and calcify. As they grow into multi-billion-dollar entities, they insert layers of management between the leaders and the workers. Creative people with passion have to persuade 5 layers of management to do what they know is right. Great people leave, and you end up with mediocrity. Apple itself was built on refugees from other companies, extremely bright individual contributors who were troublemakers elsewhere. He spoke reverently of Edwin Land, the founder of Polaroid, who saw the intersection of art, science, and business. The man is a national treasure, Jobs said. I don't understand why people like that can't be held up as models. This is the most incredible thing to be, not an astronaut, not a football player, but this. Jobs knew that talented people are package deals. You have to take the good with the bad. They might be difficult to manage, but if you want to work with the most talented, you must deal with the challenges that come with them. His company attracted a different type of person, someone who didn't want to wait 5 or 10 years for someone to take a giant risk on them, someone who wanted to get in a little over their head and make a dent in the universe. We are aware that we are doing something significant, he said. We're here at the beginning of it, and we're able to shape how it grows. Everyone here has a sense that right now is one of those moments when we are influencing the future. He articulated this mission with remarkable clarity. A human life by its very nature has to be devoted to something or other, to a glorious or humble enterprise, an illustrious or obscure destiny. When asked about competing with IBM, Jobs thought not of the Fortune 500, but of the Fortune 14 million, the small businesses that needed computers. His approach was to think of them not as businesses, but as collections of people. He rejected the idea that a single standard must prevail, comparing it to the idea that we needed one standard for automobiles in 1920. There would have been no innovation such as automatic transmission, power steering, and independent suspension if they believed that. The battle, as Jobs saw it, was between 2 competing philosophies. IBM was full of number crunchers who wanted to make money. We are a team of missionaries, he declared. We love what we're doing. The product vision that drives this company. We think that computers are the most remarkable tools that humankind has ever come up with. And we think that people are basically tool users. So if we can get lots and lots of computers to lots and lots of people, it will make some qualitative difference in the world. He spoke of his formative years, how his father, a machinist, encouraged his interests, teaching him to take things apart and put them back together. His family moved to Palo Alto when he was 5, putting him in the heart of what would become Silicon Valley. He recalled the first computer he ever saw at Hewlett-Packard when he was 12. I just thought they were neat, he said. I just wanted to mess around on one. When he needed parts for a project at 12 or 13, he picked up the phone and called Bill Hewlett, who answered himself. Hewlett gave him the parts and a summer job. I've never found anybody who didn't want to help me if I asked him for help, Jobs reflected. Most people never pick up the phone and call. And that is what separates the people who do things from the people who dream about them. You have to act. Looking back on the early days, Jobs admitted he and Steve Wozniak had no idea where it would go. From $200,000 in the garage in 1976 to $7 million in 1977, $47 million in 1979, $117 million in 1980, and $985 million in 1984. The growth was breathtaking even to him. It does not feel like overnight for me, he said. Next year will be my 10th year. I've never done anything longer than a year in my life. 6 months was a long time for me when we started Apple. This has been my life since I've been a free-willed adult. When asked about the rest of his life, Jobs invoked an old Hindu saying, "For the first 30 years of your life, you make your habits. For the last 30 years of your life, your habits make you." About to turn 30, he wasn't sure if he'd always stay connected with Apple. I hope that throughout my life, I'll sort of have the thread of my life and the thread of Apple weave in and out of each other like a tapestry. There may be a few years when I'm not here, but I'll always come back. Jobs also reflected on the power of books, the direct transmission of thoughts and ideas that shape society. Yet the problem with books is that you can't ask the author a question. He envisioned computers capturing the underlying principles of an experience, facilitating thousands of new understandings based on those principles. What if we could capture Aristotle's worldview? He wondered. The underlying principles of his worldview. Then you could eventually ask Aristotle a question. Someday we can capture an Aristotle, an Einstein, or an Edwin Land. Imagine what that could be like for us.